Absolute silence. No light penetrates the crushing weight of the deep. Below, thousands of meters beneath the surface, lies a world untouched by time, cold, dark, and filled with mysteries that science has yet to explain. We've reached the moon, we've sent probes to the edge of the solar system, and yet just a few miles below our feet, the ocean holds secrets more profound, more unsettling than anything we've discovered in space. Cities lost to time. Ships that vanished without a trace, and creatures so strange they seem born of nightmares rather than nature. In the next 4 hours, you'll descend into the abyss, into the realm of the unknown. From the sunken ruins of Yonaguni to the ghostly silence of the MV Joyita, from the eerie sounds of the Mariana Trench to the vanished city of Heracleion, this is a journey through the most baffling deep-sea history mysteries ever recorded. These are not legends. These are documented cases, investigated, archived, but never explained. So tighten your harness. Take a deep breath, because this dive into the ocean's darkest depths may forever change the way you see history and the world beneath the waves. Off the southern shores of Japan, where the East China Sea meets the Pacific in swirling, unpredictable tides, lies a place that has baffled scientists, divers, and historians alike. Just beneath the waves near Yonaguni Island is a structure so massive, so precise, and so deeply out of place in our understanding of history that many have questioned whether it could possibly be natural, or if instead it is the last surviving evidence of a forgotten civilization swallowed by the sea. Discovered by accident in 1986 by a local diver searching for hammerhead sharks, the Yonaguni Monument didn't make headlines at first. It appeared to be nothing more than an odd rock formation, jagged yet geometric, with large steps, terraces, and flat surfaces. But when word spread, and divers with an eye for archaeology began descending into its depths, the whispers of something extraordinary began to surface. What they found was astonishing, a vast underwater stone structure, complete with sharp angles, long hallways, and what appeared to be deliberate carvings. Massive platforms, towering walls, and even a pyramidal shape seemed to rise from the ocean floor like the remnants of some ancient temple. Some compared it to a sunken ziggurat, others to a ceremonial amphitheater. None could say for certain what it was, but nearly all agreed. It didn't look like anything nature would have built on its own. Measuring over 150 meters long and 25 meters high, the structure's sheer scale is difficult to comprehend without seeing it. Massive stone blocks, each weighing tons, appear stacked in near perfect lines, forming step-like terraces that descend toward the seafloor. Some parts seem to include what resembles stairways, gates, and pillars. Certain areas even appear to contain what could be altar-like formations, carved symbols, or statues long worn by time and current. Mainstream geologists argue that the monument is a natural formation shaped over millennia by tectonic activity and ocean currents. They point to patterns in the region's sandstone, the effects of erosion, and the possibility of naturally occurring fracturing. But critics of this view, especially those who have dived the site themselves, are not convinced. They argue that erosion may explain some of the features, but not all. The precise 90-degree angles, the uniformity of the steps, the clean cuts, the apparent right-angled roadways and corridors. These, they say, bear the hallmark not of nature, but of intent. One of the strongest voices in the debate is marine geologist Dr. Masaki Kimura, who has studied the site for decades. He believes the monument is the remains of a sunken city dating back over 10,000 years, possibly built by a lost civilization that predates all known cultures in the region. According to Kimura, the site contains not just one, but multiple structures: a large castle, 5 temples, an arch, and even what he describes as a stadium. He's even suggested the presence of a long road or channel leading away from the main monument. If his theories are correct, the implications are staggering. Such a civilization would have existed at the end of the last ice age, long before the rise of Mesopotamia or the pyramids of Egypt. It would rewrite the timeline of human development in Asia and perhaps the world. Of course, such claims are controversial. Without artifacts, tools, pottery, bones, writing, it is difficult to date the site or confirm its human origin. The ocean is not kind to history. What might once have rested proudly above the waves is now eroded, buried, or long lost to the currents. And yet, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The ocean keeps its secrets well. Even more compelling is the fact that Yonaguni isn't alone. All across the globe, legends speak of ancient lands swallowed by the sea, Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria. Myths, perhaps, but sites like Yonaguni give new life to these stories. Could it be that parts of humanity's history have literally sunk beneath the waves, forgotten not by chance but by time? Divers who visit the Yonaguni Monument speak of an eerie stillness. The massive stones loom in the blue gloom like ancient sentinels. Schools of fish drift silently past what look like doorways to long abandoned halls. The current tugs gently at the edges, as if the sea itself is guarding the place, reluctant to give up its secrets. What is the Yonaguni Monument? A quirk of geology, a marvel of nature, or the crumbling remains of a lost city that once thrived before the oceans rose to claim it? As we explore the site, we are left with more questions than answers. And perhaps that is the most haunting mystery of all, that something so vast, so monumental, could sit right beneath us, and we still don't know where it came from. In a world where so much of our history remains unwritten, the Yonaguni Monument reminds us that the past is not always buried beneath soil or locked in ancient ruins. Sometimes it lies just beneath the waves, waiting to be discovered. And so we descend deeper into the unknown, guided not by certainty, but by wonder. It was October 1955 when the MV Joyita set out from the port of Apia, Samoa, bound for the Tokelau Islands, a routine journey across the South Pacific expected to take only 2 days. On board were 25 people, crew and passengers alike, and a cargo of medical supplies, timber, and food. But the Joyita would never arrive. And what happened during that voyage remains one of the greatest unsolved maritime mysteries in modern history. 5 weeks after her disappearance, the MV Joyita was found adrift over 600 miles from her intended route, listing heavily to one side, half submerged, yet still afloat. There was no one on board. Not a single soul, every person, gone without a trace. What rescuers found inside only deepened the mystery. The radio was tuned to the distress frequency, but its wiring had been carefully removed. The logbook was missing, along with all navigation equipment. Life jackets were present, but the lifeboats were gone. Bloody bandages were discovered, hinting at possible injury. And oddly, the ship's cargo, particularly its medical crates, had been disturbed or looted. The Joyita herself was in poor condition. A fractured cooling pipe had caused the engine to fail, and flooding had begun in the lower holds. But the vessel was designed to be unsinkable. Built with a cork-lined hull, it would have remained afloat, even if nearly fully submerged. Whoever abandoned the ship may not have known that, or perhaps they left for another reason entirely. Investigators were baffled. If the ship was still floating, why abandon it at all? If there had been panic, why no signs of struggle? Why was the radio tampered with? Why did the ship's clock stop at 10:25 p.m.? And what happened at that hour? The official inquiry provided no real answers. Theories began to multiply. Some suggested a violent mutiny. Others pointed to Japanese pirates, rumored to still haunt the Pacific years after World War II. There were whispers of Cold War espionage or black market theft. One theory proposed that the crew and passengers were forcibly removed, taken elsewhere, never to be seen again. But nothing concrete ever surfaced. No bodies were found, no lifeboats, no signs of wreckage or landfall. Just the Joyita, adrift like a ghost, with the unsettling quiet of something gone terribly wrong. The story echoed other infamous sea disappearances, most notably the Mary Celeste, found adrift in the Atlantic in 1872 under eerily similar circumstances. But what makes the Joyita stand apart is the sheer scale of what was left behind. Not just an empty ship, but a puzzle soaked in silence and contradiction. Why was the radio deliberately disabled, yet tuned to the distress channel? Why was cargo missing? And what was so important about the medical supplies? Could there have been a confrontation, perhaps involving smuggling or secret orders gone awry? Some speculate that the Joyita may have stumbled into something it wasn't meant to see. A covert military operation, perhaps, or a vessel carrying dangerous secrets. The Pacific in the 1950s was a hotbed of tension, with nuclear tests, spy networks, and silent operations far from the public eye. Could the crew have been silenced permanently? And then there's the supernatural. Uh, those more inclined to the unexplained suggest that the Joyita sailed into something beyond human understanding, a time rift, a cursed current, even an encounter with something not of this earth. Far-fetched, perhaps, but then again, so is a 70-foot ship drifting alone for weeks, her passengers erased without a trace. The name Joyita means little jewel in Spanish. Yet, what remains today is not a gem, but a lingering enigma, polished by decades of speculation, sharpened by the impossibility of resolution. The ship herself was eventually salvaged, patched, and even used again for a time, but her history remained stained with questions. A floating monument to absence. To this day, no evidence has emerged to explain what really happened aboard the Joyita. The families of the lost received no closure, no answers. Just the empty shell of a vessel returned from the dead, a stark reminder of how easily and how completely people can vanish on the open sea. What truly happened on the MV Joyita? Was it human error, foul play, or something far stranger? As we sail deeper into the mysteries of the ocean, the Joyita stands as a warning, not just about the dangers of the sea, but about the limits of human knowledge. Sometimes the most unsettling part of a story is the silence that follows. Beneath the vastness of the Pacific Ocean lies a place so deep, so crushingly silent, that it defies the very limits of human imagination. Known as the Challenger Deep, this is the deepest known point on Earth's seabed, a chasm nearly 11 kilometers down, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. It is not merely a trench, it is an abyss, a place where light has never reached, and where the known world ends and something else begins. Located in the southern end of the Mariana Trench, east of the Philippines and south of Japan, the Challenger Deep has remained a mystery since its discovery in 1875 by the British Royal Navy ship HMS Challenger. Using weighted sounding equipment, they measured depths that shattered all previous conceptions of Earth's underwater topography. But while the name was given nearly 150 years ago, true exploration of this forbidding zone has only just begun. To date, fewer people have visited the bottom of the Challenger Deep than have walked on the surface of the moon. The journey down takes hours in specially engineered submersibles capable of withstanding pressures over 1,000 times greater than at sea level. At that depth, the weight of the ocean is 8 tons per square inch, enough to crush steel, shatter glass, or implode anything not meticulously designed for the task. So, what lies in this place of eternal darkness? The few expeditions that have reached the bottom, such as those led by filmmaker James Cameron in 2012, or the more recent dives by the DSV Limiting Factor, reveal a barren, alien world. A cold, muddy seabed, lifeless at first glance, yet strangely active. Tiny organisms live in the sediment, strange shrimp-like creatures float by. And then there are the sounds, recorded in 2016 by a NOAA deep-sea hydrophone left in the trench for 23 days. The recordings are eerie. Some are natural, earthquakes, underwater landslides, even distant whale calls distorted by the crushing pressure. But others defy easy classification. Metallic bangs, low hums, pulses that repeat at regular intervals. One particular sound, dubbed the Western Pacific biotwang, has puzzled scientists since it was first heard. It does not match any known marine creature, nor does it appear mechanical. It is real. It is loud, and no one knows what causes it. Could there be large, unknown organisms living in the deep, creatures adapted to an existence beyond sunlight and comprehension? The idea may seem far-fetched, but the ocean has taught us caution and disbelief. The coelacanth, once thought extinct for 65 million years, was found alive in 1938. The colossal squid, once considered a myth, is now documented in scientific literature. If such creatures can hide in relative shallows, what monsters might lurk in the planet's final abyss? But the Challenger Deep is more than a place of scientific curiosity. It is a symbol of the unexplored, a reminder of how little we know about the planet we call home. More than 80% of Earth's oceans remain unmapped, unobserved, and unstudied. In an age where satellites track every cloud and cities shine all night, it is humbling, perhaps terrifying, to realize that just beneath the waves lies a frontier as vast and unknown as deep space. Some researchers have proposed that life may have begun in such depths, thermal vents rich in minerals, shielded from surface radiation, offering the first chemical crucibles of biology. If true, then the Challenger Deep isn't just a geological wonder, It's a cradle of life itself, a place not of endings, but of unimaginable beginnings. And then there are the whispers. Conspiracy forums, speculative books, and fringe theorists speak of secret military installations, ancient alien technology, or even portals to other dimensions hidden in the Mariana Trench. While no evidence supports these claims, the sheer isolation and inaccessibility of the region fuel the imagination. The Challenger Deep is so far beyond the reach of ordinary exploration that almost anything could exist there, and we wouldn't know. What we do know is unsettling enough. Pressure that liquefies bone, darkness more absolute than the void of space. An ecosystem so alien that the rules of biology seem to bend. The few probes that return carry more questions than answers. Scraps of sediment, blurry footage, ghostly echoes. As we press onward in our exploration of the deep, the Challenger Deep remains a frontier we approach with reverence. Not because it is forbidden, but because it is indifferent. It has existed for eons before us. It will remain long after. It does not yield its secrets easily, and that, perhaps, is its greatest power. So we ask, what lies beyond the reach of our deepest descent? Is it nothing but blackness and silt? Or something watching from below, hidden in the silence? The Challenger Deep does not answer, it only waits. Before Alexandria rose in splendor, before the Ptolemies carved their legacy into stone, there was another great city at the mouth of the Nile. A city of temples, priests, and gods. A city where pharaohs were crowned and merchants from across the ancient world gathered in prosperity. Its name was Heracleion, known to the Greeks as the city of Heracles, and for centuries it was considered little more than legend, a story told by Herodotus and dismissed by modern historians as myth. And yet, in the year 2000, beneath the dark, silty waters of Abukir Bay, off the coast of northern Egypt, the legend rose from the deep. A team led by French marine archaeologist Frank Gaudiot uncovered one of the most astonishing underwater discoveries of the modern era, the lost city of Heracleion, perfectly preserved beneath layers of sand, mud, and time. What they found was not a scattering of stones or broken columns, but the remains of a full ancient metropolis. Temples, harbors, colossal statues, inscriptions in both Greek and ancient Egyptian, rows of sphinxes and ceremonial boats made of stone buried beneath the sea for more than 1,000 years. Heracleion was real, and it was magnificent. Once a thriving port city between the 6th and 2nd centuries BCE, Heracleion was the gateway to Egypt. It stood at the intersection of politics, trade, and religion. Foreign ambassadors came through its harbors. The temple of Amun-Gereb, towering at its heart, was one of the most sacred shrines in the land. It was here that pharaohs received the divine blessing of the gods before ascending the throne. And it was here that Greek merchants, long before Alexander, mingled with Egyptian priests in the shadow of the gods. But then, the city vanished. For centuries, no trace could be found. Alexandria became the jewel of the Nile Delta, and Heracleion faded into obscurity, remembered only in whispers. Some said it had sunk into the earth. Others believed it had been swallowed by the sea, like a second Atlantis. And in a way, they were both right. The story of Heracleon's fall is as dramatic as its rise. Scientists now believe that the city was built on a fragile patchwork of clay and sand, beneath which ran a network of natural waterways. Over time, the land became unstable. Earthquakes rocked the region, a sudden cataclysmic event, possibly a combination of liquefaction and rising sea levels, caused entire sections of the city to collapse and slip beneath the waves. The sea, as always, covered its tracks well. What was once a grand capital became a graveyard of stone and silence. But unlike Atlantis, Heracleion has been pulled from myth into history. Thanks to modern technology, side-scan sonar, magnetometers, and sub-bottom profilers, archaeologists were able to map the seabed and locate the ancient ruins. What they discovered shocked the world. Among the treasures recovered, a giant granite statue of Hapi, the god of the Nile's flood, standing over 5 meters tall, gold coins and jewelry, ceramic jars from Greece and Phoenicia, stone tablets inscribed in 3 languages, and most remarkably, a stela from the temple of Thonis Heracleion, bearing legal decrees and religious texts that confirmed the city's name and its sacred role. One of the most striking revelations was just how well the city had been preserved. The Nile's sediment, flowing constantly into the bay, had acted as a natural protector, burying the ruins while shielding them from erosion. It was as if the city had been embalmed, like the pharaohs it once served. Yet mysteries remain. Why did Heracleion fall so quickly? Were there warnings? Was the Temple of Amun the target of divine wrath, or simply a victim of geological chance? And why, in all the ancient writings, is there so little mention of its demise? Some believe the silence was deliberate, that when Heracleion fell, it marked the end of a sacred age, a time when gods walked among men, and Egypt's power was ruled not just by kings, but by the favor of the divine. In losing Heracleion, Egypt lost something more than stone. It lost a symbol. And perhaps in grief or fear, the scribes simply stopped writing. Others draw comparisons to Plato's Atlantis, a mighty city lost to the sea in a single day and night of misfortune, a center of wisdom and power, swallowed by forces beyond comprehension. Could Heracleion be the real Atlantis, or is it one of many cities throughout history buried beneath the waves waiting for time to uncover them? Today, divers swim through its ancient streets. Schools of fish drift past broken statues. Sand shifts slowly over the ruins, revealing and concealing, as if the city itself is still breathing beneath the tide. Heracleion is not just a rediscovered city. It is a mirror, showing us how much can be forgotten, how fragile even the greatest empires truly are. It reminds us that history is not always written in ink and parchment. Sometimes it sleeps beneath the sea, guarded by silence. And sometimes it wakes. In the cold waters of the South Atlantic, off the windswept coast of Patagonia, a modern maritime mystery unfolded that gripped a nation and then the world. It is the story of a vessel that vanished without warning. A submarine, state-of-the-art, battle-hardened, and manned by a crew of 44 experienced sailors, gone, just like that. No distress signal, no warning, no trace. This is the mystery of the Ara San Juan, a tragedy and an enigma. It was November 15th, 2017. The ARA San Juan, a diesel-electric submarine in service with the Argentine Navy, was returning to base in Mar del Plata after a routine mission to Ushuaia, the southernmost city in the country. Her last reported position was somewhere off the coast near the Gulf of San Jorge. And then, silence. Communications ceased for hours, then days. The Argentine Navy launched an immediate search effort. Planes scanned thousands of miles of ocean. Ships swept the sea with sonar. Nations across the globe, Germany, Russia, the US, the UK, sent support. It became one of the largest naval search operations in history. And yet, nothing. No signal, no oil slick, no debris. The families waited, the press speculated, the military stayed quiet. Then, a revelation. Just hours after the San Juan's last known contact, international monitoring stations had detected a mysterious acoustic anomaly, an explosion deep beneath the waves near the submarine's last reported location. It was a moment of grim realization. The Era San Juan had not just gone silent, she had been destroyed, instantaneously, completely. But that only raised more questions. What could have caused a modern submarine to implode so catastrophically? The Era San Juan was not some rusting relic. It had undergone a major refit in 2013. Her crew was experienced, her systems tested. Yet whatever happened to her happened so fast, they never got a chance to send a distress call. Was it an onboard fire, a hydrogen gas buildup from the batteries, a mechanical failure, a design flaw, or something else? As weeks turned into months, anger grew. Ningen grew. Families demanded answers. Theories swirled. Some claimed the submarine had been on a covert surveillance mission, monitoring foreign vessels near the disputed Falkland Islands. Others whispered of secret cargo, undisclosed orders. A few claimed that foreign forces might have been involved. The government remained tight-lipped. And still, the ocean kept its silence. It wasn't until 1 year later, in November 2018, that the wreck of the San Juan was finally located, 920 meters below the surface off the Patagonian coast. She was broken apart, her hull collapsed under pressure. The implosion had been so violent, experts estimated it occurred in milliseconds. The crew would have never known what hit them. The images were haunting. The once proud submarine lay scattered across the seabed, twisted metal and shattered systems, a war grave in the cold dark. Investigators examined the evidence. Leaked reports suggested a water leak near the battery compartment may have triggered a fire. Others cited poor maintenance and pressure control systems. But even now, the official narrative is incomplete. There are still classified details, still pieces missing. Because perhaps the true mystery is not only how the San Juan sank, but why it was allowed to sail in the first place with known issues into dangerous waters, and why, even in a world saturated with satellites, sensors, and surveillance, a modern submarine can disappear and not be found for over a year. The ocean does not discriminate between ancient and modern. It swallows with equal indifference. The fate of the ARA San Juan is not unlike that of the USS Cyclops or the Waratah, or the countless ghost ships lost before. But this was no tale from a century ago. This was our time, our technology, our tragedy. The 44 crew members of the San Juan were sons, daughters, brothers, mothers. They were sailors, engineers, technicians, and above all, they were brave. They went down serving their country in silence, out of sight, beneath the waves, in one of the most unforgiving places on Earth. Their names now live on in plaques and memorials. But their voices were silenced by the sea. And though we now know where the San Juan rests, we still do not fully understand why or how. In that gap between evidence and explanation lies a silence just as profound as the trench that claimed them. In the end, the story of the San Juan is more than a tragedy. It is a reminder that even in the age of GPS and Google Earth, of satellites and AI, the ocean still holds power over us. It can take, it can hide, it can bury the truth, and sometimes it never gives it back. Far out in the South China Sea, beyond the reach of most maps and far from the sight of ordinary travelers, there exists a place so deep, so mysterious, and so little understood that even local legend dares not speak its name too often. To the Western world, it is known simply as the Dragon Hole, but to those who have lived near its waters for generations, it has another name: Long Dong, the Eye of the Sea Dragon. Measuring over 300 meters, nearly 1,000 feet deep, the Dragon Hole is the deepest known blue hole in the world, surpassing even the famous Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas. From the surface, it appears tranquil, an almost perfect circle of sapphire-colored water ringed by coral reef. But beneath that surface lies a vertical tunnel that plummets into the earth, a liquid abyss that swallows light, heat, and understanding. For centuries, fishermen and sailors in the Paracel Islands region avoided the hole. They spoke in hushed voices of boats that drifted too close, only to vanish, of strange lights beneath the water, of whirlpools that seemed to pull even the wind downward. They believed the Dragon Hole was a portal to another world, a passage to the realm of sea gods, or worse, sea monsters. These were just stories, until science finally caught up. In 2016, a team of Chinese researchers undertook the most comprehensive exploration of the Dragon Hole to date. Using remote-operated vehicles, ROVs, and depth-sensing equipment, they confirmed what had long been suspected. The Dragon Hole was deeper than anyone had ever imagined, but what they didn't expect was what they didn't find. Unlike other blue holes, the Dragon Hole has a strange lack of circulation. Below a certain depth, about 100 meters, the water becomes anoxic, meaning it lacks oxygen and cannot support most life. Yet even within this lifeless void, the team discovered over 20 new species of microbes, some of which have never been seen elsewhere. Extremophiles, organisms that thrive in conditions thought inhospitable to life, living in total darkness under immense pressure in toxic waters. What are they doing there? How did they evolve? What do they feed on? Some researchers believe the answer may lie in the geology of the hole itself. Beneath the sediment and limestone walls, there may be mineral vents, or even access to underground aquifers that date back tens of thousands of years. Others suggest the hole may be linked to deeper fault lines, forming part of a vast and as yet unknown subterranean network beneath the South China Sea. And then there's the magnetic interference. Multiple instruments deployed near the Dragon Hole reported intermittent compass malfunctions. Readings would flicker, drift, then reset. Sonar would distort as if bouncing off something that wasn't there, or perhaps something that moved. Even stranger are the acoustic anomalies. In a 2019 expedition, hydrophones lowered into the hole picked up faint rhythmic pulses, sounds not unlike biological signals, but too regular, too symmetrical. Not seismic, not volcanic, not mechanical. As if something within the hole was communicating, or at the very least resonating with a frequency we do not yet understand. And yet, despite its scientific intrigue, the Dragon Hole remains largely unstudied. Political tensions in the region, especially over territorial disputes in the South China Sea, make extended research difficult. No country wants to share too much data. Some believe this is due to military interest in the region. Others suggest something more obscure. Conspiracy theorists claim the dragon hole is being actively monitored, perhaps even restricted, due to what's been found or what's been heard below. They point to sudden flight restrictions around the paracels and unmarked vessels circling the area. It's all circumstantial. But when it comes to the deep sea, absence of proof is not proof of absence. If the dragon hole holds secrets, it holds them well. Geologically speaking, blue holes like Longdong are thought to be collapsed sea caves, formed during past ice ages when sea levels were lower. Over millennia, they filled with water as the oceans rose. But unlike most natural formations, this hole is almost perfectly vertical, its walls smooth, its structure stable beyond expectation. Nature is rarely that tidy. Could it be artificial? Could it be part of something older, something left behind not by tectonic movement, but by intelligent hands now long gone? That may sound far-fetched, but then again, so did underwater pyramids, so did lost cities, so did glowing microbes that eat poison and defy evolution. The dragon hole doesn't answer questions, it generates them. It is a place where the known laws of biology, chemistry, and geology seem to hesitate, unsure of their own authority. A place where science meets silence, and in that silence, we are left only with wonder. Could the dragon hole be Earth's gateway to another world, a relic of forgotten geology, or a window into a realm untouched by time? The sea does not say, it only watches and waits. It began with a storm. In the year 1900, a group of sponge divers seeking shelter off the Greek island of Antikythera plunged into the depths, expecting coral, fish, and forgotten wrecks. But what they found instead would change the very story of human history. Beneath the waves, scattered across the seafloor, was the broken hull of an ancient Roman-era ship. Among its cargo, marble statues, bronze arms, amphorae, jewelry, and something far more enigmatic. A lump of corroded bronze no larger than a shoebox, encrusted with time and salt. It was dismissed at first. Just another artifact ruined by centuries undersea. But inside this decaying relic was something the world was not ready for. A machine. Today, it is known as the Antikythera mechanism, the world's oldest known analog computer built more than 2,000 years ago. And even now, after over a century of study, we still don't fully understand how it was made or why. X-ray imaging and 3D reconstruction have revealed a mechanism of astonishing complexity. Gears, dozens of them, interlocked with impossible precision. Dials, rotating hands, inscribed instructions in ancient Greek. This was not a toy, not a random clockwork. It was a device of calculation, of astronomy, cosmology, and perhaps prophecy. Scholars believe the Antikythera mechanism could predict celestial movements with remarkable accuracy. It tracked the position of the sun, the moon, and possibly even the 5 known planets. It forecast eclipses and mapped the cycles of the Olympic Games. The level of mechanical engineering on display would not be seen again in Europe for over 1,000 years. And yet, no one knows who built it or how. Was it the work of Archimedes, of a lost Hellenistic genius whose name history forgot? The craftsmanship suggests advanced metallurgy, mathematical understanding, and machining techniques previously thought impossible in the 1st century BCE. More importantly, was it unique, or just one of many such devices, lost to fire, war, or time? The ship that carried the mechanism was a massive Roman-era merchant vessel, likely en route from Asia Minor to Italy. But what was it doing with a Greek machine of such sophistication? Was it loot? A gift? Or part of a larger cargo of lost knowledge, one of countless wonders traded, hidden, or stolen during the chaos of empire? Other fragments of the mechanism have since been discovered. Tiny pieces of bronze, inscriptions, worn gears, but nothing to rival the original find. No complete blueprint, no instructions for replication. It's as if the Antikythera mechanism were a message in a bottle, sent from a civilization that reached too high, too fast, and then vanished. Some call it the Greek computer. Others, more boldly, call it the Rosetta Stone of technology. But whatever name it goes by, its presence on the ocean floor is a haunting contradiction. We think of the ancient world as primitive. Men with spears, stone temples, and myths. And yet, here was a device so advanced, so precise, that it could be mistaken for a product of the Renaissance or beyond. And this raises unsettling questions. If the Antikythera mechanism existed in 100 BCE, what else did? What other machines, instruments, or sciences were lost in the fires of Alexandria, in the collapse of empires, in the silence of sunken ships? Is history a straight line, or have we lost entire chapters along the way? And then, of course, come the whispers. Alternative historians suggest the mechanism is a relic of a far older tradition, one passed down from vanished civilizations like Atlantis or Mu. They claim the knowledge was not invented by the Greeks, but inherited from a deeper past, now hidden beneath the sea. A world that once had machines, maps of the stars, and a grasp of time far beyond what we credit to antiquity. Mainstream science rejects these claims, yet even skeptics must admit the Antikythera mechanism stands alone. Nothing like it has ever been found, and its existence suggests a level of cultural and scientific sophistication that forces us to rethink the boundaries of the ancient world. Today, the fragments of the mechanism rest in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, under glass, under guard. Scientists continue to scan, reconstruct, and model, and yet the more we uncover, the stranger it becomes. Why was the mechanism built to predict eclipses centuries in advance? Why did its dials include cycles only known through Babylonian astronomy? Why was it allowed to disappear from history for nearly 2 millennia? Could it be that the sea, as it often does, preserved not just an object, but a warning, a glimpse of what once was, and what can so easily be lost? The Antikythera treasure is more than bronze, more than gearwork. It is a question. What else lies beneath the waves that could change everything we think we know about ourselves? And how many secrets has the ocean already taken? Forever. She was found adrift in the Atlantic, her sails partly raised, her hull intact, and her cargo untouched. There were no signs of struggle, no damage, no distress signal, yet not a single soul remained on board. The lifeboat was gone, the crew was gone, and the mystery had only just begun. This is the story of the Mary Celeste, a tale of haunting silence, unanswered questions, and one of the most enduring maritime enigmas in recorded history. On November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York Harbor bound for Genoa, Italy. The ship was a 282-ton brigantine, seaworthy and well-provisioned. On board were Captain Benjamin Briggs, a respected and deeply religious sailor, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and a crew of 7. The cargo, 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. By all accounts, the voyage was routine. There was no cause for alarm, until, 4 weeks later, the Dei Gratia, another merchant ship, spotted her drifting aimlessly some 400 miles east of the Azores. As they approached, the crew noted something odd. The sails were tattered, the ship was listing slightly, but she was still afloat. When they boarded, what they found was as eerie as it was baffling. The galley was stocked. The crew's personal belongings were undisturbed. There were no signs of violence. The ship's logbook ended 9 days earlier, with no mention of trouble. Even the last meal had been left uneaten. But the lifeboat was missing, the chronometer, sextant, and ship's papers also gone. What had happened to the Mary Celeste's crew? Why would seasoned sailors abandon a seaworthy vessel in the middle of the Atlantic? And why would they do so without taking food, water, or any clear means of navigation? The investigation that followed only deepened the mystery. At first, suspicion fell on the crew of the Dei Gratia. Perhaps they had found the Mary Celeste, killed the crew, and claimed salvage. But there was no evidence of violence, and the court ruled in their favor, albeit reluctantly. Then came the theories. Some suggested pirates, though none of the valuables were missing. Others pointed to mutiny, but the crew had no known grievances and left behind no signs of conflict. There were whispers of insurance fraud, of Captain Briggs staging a disappearance to collect money, but that made little sense. He had brought his wife and daughter along. It was not the voyage of a man intending never to return. Then, a more scientific explanation emerged. Alcohol vapor explosion. The ship's cargo, industrial alcohol, was volatile. If a leak occurred and vapors ignited in the hold, a sudden burst could have terrified the crew. It might not have caused visible damage, but the noise and shock could have convinced the captain the ship was about to explode. They may have evacuated temporarily, tying a rope to the lifeboat, staying nearby. But if that rope had snapped in the wind, they'd be lost, watching helplessly as their vessel drifted away. It's plausible, but not proven. Other theories are stranger still. Some claim the crew was struck by poisonous fumes from the alcohol. Others cited waterspouts, giant rogue waves, or even underwater seismic activity that rocked the ship violently but left no trace. There are even those who turn to the supernatural, suggesting alien abduction, sea monsters, or the ship sailing into a time slip, a Bermuda Triangle-like disruption of space and reality. But perhaps the most chilling theory is that we will never know. The Mary Celeste was eventually salvaged, repaired, and returned to service, but her reputation was never the same. Sailors refused to work aboard her. Owners changed hands repeatedly. In her final years, she was used for shady business, and in 1885, she was deliberately wrecked off the coast of Haiti in a failed insurance scam. Her bones now lie somewhere beneath the Caribbean waves, scattered, rusting, forgotten. But the mystery remains. Remains. What makes the tale of the Mary Celeste endure is not just that a crew vanished, it's how completely they vanished. There were no Mayday calls, no bodies, no wreckage, no goodbyes. It was as though they had been plucked from reality, leaving only the ghost of their journey behind. In many ways, the Mary Celeste is not just a story of a ship. It's a story about the limits of knowledge, about the fragility of human plans against the vastness of the sea. One moment, order and routine, the next, emptiness. The sea keeps its secrets, and sometimes it erases its witnesses. As we look back on that cold morning in December 1872, as the De Gratia's sailors stepped aboard the drifting vessel, they could not have known they were walking into history, into a silence so complete, so consuming, that even now, more than 150 years later, it still holds us in its grip. What happened to the Mary Celeste? We may never know. But the ocean remembers. Off the southern coast of Laconia, Greece, where turquoise Mediterranean waves gently kiss rugged shores, lies a submerged city lost to time, Pavlopetri. Beneath the calm surface, sunlight reveals streets, walls, and buildings laid out with striking precision. More than a legend, Pavlopetri is real, perhaps the oldest known submerged city on Earth. Discovered in 1967 by Nicholas Fleming and mapped in detail by a British-Greek team, this early Bronze Age metropolis dates back at least to 2800 BCE, making it older than the Acropolis, Knossos, and even the earliest Greek writings. Unlike scattered ruins, Pavlopetri displays a sophisticated urban plan featuring an organized street grid, multi-room homes, public squares, burial chambers, a complex water management system, and a working harbor. Archaeologists marveled at the city's advanced design, streets aligned to cardinal points, two-story houses, indoor plumbing, and specialized workshops suggesting a structured social and economic order. Artifacts like Minoan ceramics and trade goods point to Pavlopetri's role as a vibrant hub within the wider Mediterranean trade networks. Around 1000 BCE, Pavlopetri vanished beneath the sea, likely due to a combination of earthquakes and rising sea levels that caused the land to slowly subside. Unlike many ancient cities destroyed by fire or war, Pavlopetri's end was silent and gradual, its inhabitants fleeing inland as waters claimed their homes. Thanks to modern sonar and 3D mapping technologies, archaeologists can now virtually explore this city submerged for millennia, walking through its streets and homes, glimpsing a world long gone. Pavlopetri challenges long-held views on the origins of urban civilization, suggesting that early societies in the Mediterranean had complex knowledge of city planning and governance far earlier than previously thought. It raises profound questions. How many other ancient cities lie hidden beneath rising seas? How much of human history has been drowned and forgotten? Could myths like Atlantis and Tartessos be echoes of real sunken civilizations? Protected by UNESCO but threatened by pollution and climate change, Pavlopetri is more than an archaeological wonder. It's a timeless message, a reminder that long before recorded history, humans built, dreamed, and thrived, and that the sea remains both witness and guardian of our lost past. She was one of the largest ships in the U.S. Navy at the time, a steel-hulled colossus nearly 550 feet long, capable of carrying over 10,000 tons of cargo. She had weathered storms, crossed oceans, and served through wartime with dignity. And yet, in March of 1918, the USS Cyclops vanished without a trace. No distress call, no wreckage, no survivors, just silence. To this day, it remains the single largest loss of life in U.S. Navy history not involving combat. And it happened within one of the most mysterious regions on Earth, the Bermuda Triangle. The Cyclops had been commissioned in 1910 as a Proteus-class collier, a ship designed to transport coal to fuel the growing naval fleet. By 1917, she was refitted to carry manganese ore, critical for steel production during World War I. With a crew of 309 men, including her seasoned captain, Commander George W. Worley, she set out on what should have been a routine voyage from Brazil to Baltimore. The journey began smoothly. On March 3rd, the Cyclops left the port of Salvador, Brazil. She made a brief stop in Barbados on March 4th to take on supplies. That would be the last time anyone saw her. After leaving port, she vanished. No SOS signal was ever received. No lifeboats or bodies were recovered. No floating debris. The ship was simply gone. The U.S. Navy launched an extensive investigation and search operation. Ships scoured the seas. Ports were contacted. Nothing. It was as if the Cyclops had been plucked out of existence. In a world already gripped by the chaos of war, the disappearance was a shock. President Woodrow Wilson himself famously said, "Only God and the sea know what happened to the great ship." And yet, more than a century later, we still don't know. Theories abound, each one more disturbing than the last. Some point to structural failure. The Cyclops had suffered a cracked cylinder on an earlier voyage. She may have been overloaded, carrying more manganese ore than safe. Could she have broken apart under stress? Possibly. But even in such a scenario, some wreckage should have floated, and manganese ore doesn't explode. Others cite enemy action. 1918 was the height of World War I. Could a German U-boat have torpedoed her? It's unlikely. No German naval records report a hit, and U-boats in the Atlantic were under close watch at the time. Besides, wouldn't a sinking of that magnitude have left behind oil slicks, cargo, wreckage? Then there's the man at the helm, Commander Worley. Some accounts paint him as eccentric, even unstable. Rumors swirled that he was born in Germany, had sympathies with the enemy, or was unfit for command. Could he have sabotaged the ship? Defected? Lost control? Again, nothing in the logs or records from Barbados suggests imminent trouble. And so, inevitably, the story of the Cyclops became part of something larger, something older, the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. That region of the Atlantic, bounded roughly by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has long been associated with disappearances of ships, planes, entire crews. Over the years, the loss of the Cyclops has become its crown jewel, the largest and most chilling case in a pattern of vanishings that science still struggles to explain. Some believe the area is home to unusual magnetic fields, which disrupt compasses and confuse navigation. Others suggest methane hydrate eruptions from the seafloor, capable of sinking vessels instantly. Then there are theories about electromagnetic anomalies, time warps, and even underwater alien bases. But perhaps the most haunting possibility is also the simplest, that the ocean in its vastness can swallow anything, even a ship the size of a city block, even 309 souls. And yet, something about the Cyclops feels different. It wasn't a stormy night. No rogue wave was reported. No enemy action was logged. It disappeared in calm waters in daylight without a whisper. For a ship of that size to vanish without a single call for help, it goes against logic, against naval protocol, against the physics of buoyancy itself. Over the decades, deep-sea exploration teams have scanned large portions of the Atlantic seafloor. No confirmed wreckage of the Cyclops has ever been found. It remains one of the greatest maritime cold cases in history. Her sister ships, USS Proteus and USS Nereus, would later also disappear under strange circumstances during World War II, both carrying similar cargo and both in or near the Bermuda Triangle. Coincidence? Or a pattern? Perhaps the Cyclops is not just a tragedy, but a warning. That even in the age of steel and steam, the sea answers to no one. That there are places in the world where logic frays, where instruments fail, where men disappear into silence and are never heard from again. Today, the USS Cyclops is a ghost, a name etched into plaques spoken of in naval academies remembered by the families of the lost. But somewhere, far below the surface, in the cold, crushing dark, perhaps she still rests, forgotten by man, guarded by the sea, and until that wreck is found, if it ever is, her silence speaks louder than words. In July of 1909, a grand steamship disappeared off the coast of South Africa without a single trace. No wreckage, no distress signal, no survivors. She was the SS Joyita, a floating palace designed to link two continents filled with passengers, cargo, and promise. But within days, That promise turned to silence. And over a century later, the Waratah remains one of the greatest lost ship mysteries in maritime history. They called her the Titanic of the Southern Hemisphere, though she vanished 3 years before the Titanic ever set sail. Measuring 500 feet long, with twin engines and luxurious accommodations, the Waratah was built to carry both cargo and colonial ambition between Australia and the United Kingdom, with a route stretching through the unpredictable waters of the Indian Ocean and around the treacherous Cape of Good Hope. On July 26, 1909, the Waratah departed Durban, South Africa, heading toward Cape Town, the next stop before crossing the Atlantic. She carried 211 people, passengers and crew, and a mixed cargo of goods and ore. The seas were rough, but the vessel was believed to be sound, confident, modern. But somewhere along that well-traveled coast, the Waratah vanished. A single ship, the Clan McIntyre, claimed to have seen her silhouette in the distance, battling high swells, around midnight on July 27th. After that, nothing. When the Waratah failed to arrive in Cape Town, panic spread. A search was launched. Ships combed the coastline. Weeks passed, months, but no wreckage ever surfaced. No lifeboats, no bodies, nothing. It was as if the sea had swallowed her whole. For the families left behind, the absence of answers was devastating, and for investigators, it was confounding. The Waratah had been inspected prior to her voyage and cleared for duty. She had completed her maiden journey with success. So what went wrong? Then came the testimonies from her first voyage a year earlier. Several passengers recalled strange behavior. Some claimed the ship had a tendency to list or roll unpredictably, even in moderate conditions. Others said she was top-heavy, carrying too many upper-deck cabins and too little ballast. Rumors surfaced that a few passengers had disembarked early, uneasy with the ship's performance and unwilling to make the return journey. One survivor of the earlier voyage famously said, "I wouldn't step aboard her again if you paid me." Was the Waratah doomed by design? Marine engineers later theorized that the ship had a critical stability flaw, that in certain wave conditions she could heel over too far and be unable to recover. A single violent storm could have capsized her in minutes, sending her to the bottom with no time for a distress call or evacuation. But again, if that were the case, the waters off the wild coast of South Africa are notoriously difficult, deep, stormy, littered with hidden trenches and shifting currents. Several major expeditions have been mounted to find the Waratah, including modern sonar mapping and submersible surveys. Each one has failed. One promising lead in the 1990s, an underwater structure resembling a large hull, proved to be a false alarm. Even now, despite all our technology, the Waratah remains undiscovered. And as with all great disappearances, theories have flourished in the silence. Some believe the ship was caught in a freak wave, a massive wall of water rising from nowhere, slamming into the side of the vessel with enough force to break her spine. These rogue waves were once thought impossible, but are now accepted as real, rare phenomena capable of sinking even the largest ships. Others point to spontaneous cargo explosion, particularly from volatile materials like coal or gas pockets in the hold. There were even whispers of sabotage or insurance fraud, but no evidence has ever surfaced to support such claims. And, of course, as always, there are those who reach beyond science. Some link the Waratah's disappearance to the same forces that claimed the Cyclops, the Joyita, or the Mary Celeste, a mysterious energy, a tear in time, a curse. A few even claim the Waratah was seen sailing ghost-like along the horizon days after her disappearance, her lights flickering before fading back into the mist. Fact or fiction, history or legend, all we know is this: a massive ship filled with people and purpose vanished along a major shipping route in daylight hours without a single confirmed sighting of her wreck. Over 200 souls lost to the deep, and more than 100 years later, not a trace has been recovered. Perhaps the Waratah lies beneath a trench, broken and entombed in darkness. Or perhaps she rests in plain sight, buried under layers of sediment, waiting for the right sonar pass or robotic eye to find her. Until that day comes, if it ever does, her story remains suspended in mystery. She sailed boldly into the ocean's mouth and never returned. The fate of the Waratah is not just a maritime mystery. It is a reminder that even in an age of progress, when men thought they had conquered the sea, The ocean still had the final word, and sometimes that word is silence. They were called silent hunters, sleek, steel predators gliding beneath the waves. In the vast theaters of World War II, submarines played a decisive and deadly role. They stalked convoys, disrupted supply lines, and struck fear into every sailor who dared cross the open sea. But for all their power, stealth, and precision, many of these submarines simply vanished. Not in battle, not in the chaos of gunfire or depth charges, but in silence, swallowed by the ocean without a single flare, a burst of static, or even a scream. Their wrecks were never found, their fates never confirmed, their crews entombed in steel and mystery. These are the phantom submarines of World War II, and their stories remain among the most chilling and unresolved enigmas in maritime history. In 1943, the German U-boat U-47 was among the most feared weapons of the Kriegsmarine. Commanded by the legendary Gunther Preen, U-47 had famously infiltrated the British naval base at Scapa Flow and sunk the HMS Royal Oak in one of the most daring submarine missions of the war. But in March of that year, U-47 left port on a routine patrol into the North Atlantic and was never heard from again. No distress call, no wreckage, no evidence of engagement. She simply disappeared. British naval records later speculated that a destroyer might have sunk her, but no such attack was confirmed. U-47, the pride of Nazi Germany's undersea fleet, became a ghost. And she was not alone. The American submarine USS Scorpion, SS-278, vanished in January 1944 during a patrol in the East China Sea. She had successfully sunk enemy vessels in previous weeks and was expected to return to Midway Island. But she never arrived. No Japanese forces claimed her destruction. No oil slick was sighted. No wreckage recovered. In the official report, her loss was listed as cause unknown. Then there was Italy's submarine Jantina, which vanished in the Aegean, the Soviet Sh-206 lost in the Black Sea, the British HMS Untamed, which failed to surface during training, the Japanese I-361, which disappeared with over 100 men aboard. More than 70 submarines from all sides were lost during World War II with no confirmed cause, many without even a mayday signal. How does this happen? Some submarines may have struck naval mines, invisible killers lying in wait beneath the waves. Others may have suffered mechanical failures, malfunctions in ballast tanks, hull breaches, battery explosions. But even so, the total absence of signals or remains baffling. In some cases, submarines vanished while in friendly waters during peacetime transits or just hours before scheduled contact. And with every disappearance, questions grew darker. Were they sunk by enemy forces, their fates never recorded? Did friendly fire or navigation errors lead them into death traps? Or were they lost to the sea itself, a realm known for its indifference to technology and rank? But then the theories began to drift beyond logic. Some speculated that certain subs may have been captured, boarded, and taken secretly, with their crews imprisoned or executed, their loss hidden for wartime advantage. Others pointed to experimental weaponry, dangerous prototypes that could have destroyed their own users. A few even whispered of secret missions, spying, infiltration, or the transportation of weapons too sensitive to appear in official records. Then, of course, came the truly strange ideas that some of these submarines entered time anomalies, were swallowed by undersea gravitational distortions, or fell victim to undisclosed energy weapons, perhaps not even of earthly origin. Ridiculous? Perhaps, but not entirely dismissible. Because even decades later, when deep-sea expeditions mapped previously unreachable parts of the ocean floor, many of the phantom submarines were still not found. Modern sonar, robotic drones, magnetometers, all deployed, all returning. Nothing. Even the mystery of the USS Scorpion, a nuclear submarine lost in 1968, not during World War II, but eerily similar, has fueled conspiracy theories for decades. Her wreck was eventually located at a depth of 9,800 feet. But the cause of her sinking, the silence around her mirrored the silence of dozens before her. And it is that silence that haunts us. A submarine is more than just a vessel. It is a sealed world containing the lives, thoughts, and final breaths of dozens of men. When one disappears, it does so completely. There is no splash, no trail, no flare in the sky, only absence. And the ocean, with its miles of water and pressure so immense it could crush a car like paper, is the perfect accomplice. Today, we remember these lost submarines not just as curiosities, but as symbols of war's deepest unknowns. They rest, if they rest at all, in the cold darkness of the deep, untouched by light, unreachable by divers, and unmarked on our maps. They are time capsules, tombs, echoes, and perhaps somewhere out there, beneath the roaring waves and shifting tides, the ocean still holds their secrets, waiting for the day we come looking. Or perhaps it intends never to give them back. On a calm April afternoon in 2007, a sleek white catamaran was spotted drifting silently off the coast of northern Australia. The sea was peaceful. The sails were up, the engine hummed gently, a meal sat uneaten on the table, a laptop was open, life jackets were undisturbed in their compartments. There was only one thing missing: the crew. The vessel's name was Kaz 2, a 12-meter yacht that had set sail just days earlier from Airlie Beach, bound for Townsville, with 3 experienced sailors aboard: Derek Batten, 56, Peter Tunstead, 69, and his brother James Tunstead, 63. All were competent, responsible men. None were reckless adventurers. This was a routine coastal trip, well within their skill, in a region known for mild conditions. But when maritime authorities boarded the Kaz 2 on April 20th, 5 days after she had last been seen, they found a floating ghost. The table was neatly set for lunch. Coffee cups were still full. A newspaper from the day of departure lay folded. The boat's GPS system and electronics were functional. The engine was running, but the crew had vanished. No signs of violence. No distress signal, no damage to the vessel, no indication that anything had gone wrong, except the complete and total absence of all 3 men. The media quickly dubbed it Australia's Mary Celeste, and the comparison was chillingly apt. Like its infamous 19th century predecessor, the Kaz 2 had been left in pristine condition, as if her crew had simply stepped off for a moment and never returned. Search and rescue operations were launched across the Coral Sea, but no bodies were ever found. No debris, no life raft. It was as if the men had evaporated into the ocean air. And the questions came fast and frantic. What could cause 3 grown men, seasoned sailors, to disappear without a trace in broad daylight on calm seas? Initial theories proposed a tragic accident. Perhaps one of the Tunstead brothers had fallen overboard while fishing or checking the dinghy. The others may have jumped in to rescue him, only to find themselves unable to return as the boat drifted away. But the Kaz 2 was a catamaran, not a sailboat prone to rapid drift. And no personal items had been disturbed, no clothes hastily shed, no signs of struggle or panic. Others suggested that a sudden squall or rogue wave may have swept the crew overboard. But weather reports showed only moderate winds and calm conditions during the time in question. The boat's own mast-mounted camera had captured footage just hours before the last log entry, showing nothing unusual. More bizarre theories emerged. Piracy, although rare in Australian waters, was floated. But again, no valuables were missing. No signs of forced entry, no tampering with the boat's systems. Some speculated on paranormal causes, a triangle of strange disappearances in the Coral Sea, time slips, electromagnetic interference. Even alien abduction found its way into internet forums. But nothing concrete ever surfaced. And then came the forensic breakdown. Authorities found that the sail had been damaged, torn and flapping loose. The anchor was still up. One life buoy had broken loose and trailed behind the vessel on a tangled rope. The GPS log revealed erratic movements, possibly from the boat drifting without control. These details seemed to support the accidental drowning theory. But still, no one could explain why the crew didn't radio for help, why none of the emergency equipment had been activated, why all 3 men, simultaneously, disappeared. One theory stood out: a tragic chain reaction. Perhaps one man went overboard while fixing the sail or untangling the buoy rope. Another dove in to save him. The third, panicked or unaware of how to turn the catamaran around, may have tried to help, only to fall in himself or be swept overboard by a rogue movement of the sail. It was a tidy theory. Logical. Tragic. Acceptable. But it didn't sit right. Not with the eerie tidiness of the boat, the undisturbed drinks, the freshly made food, the untouched radio. The fact that none of the men were wearing life jackets, and yet none had thought to deploy any safety gear. And most haunting of all, no remains were ever recovered. The ocean, of course, is vast. It has consumed thousands of lives without leaving so much as a trace. But something about the Kaz 2 cuts deeper. It is the intimacy of it, the coffee cups, the sunlit deck, the silence. a scene frozen in time. It's not just the loss that haunts us. It's the way that loss was left behind, like a breath held too long. Today, the Kaz 2 is remembered as one of the strangest maritime vanishings in modern Australian history. The yacht itself was salvaged and returned to port, but her mystery remains adrift. What happened in those final moments? Did fear play a part? Panic? Duty? Or was it something else entirely? Something just beyond the reach of logic and light? The coral sea holds no answers. It simply sways with the tide, whispering of lives lost not to storms nor to violence, but to the infinite quiet of the unknown. Somewhere beneath the restless waters of the Strait of Malacca, one of the busiest and most dangerous shipping lanes in the world, lies a treasure so vast, so legendary, that it has haunted explorers, fortune seekers, and historians for over 500 years. It is the lost cargo of the Flor de la Mar, a Portuguese carrack laden with the unimaginable wealth of an empire and a mystery that refuses to be solved. They called her the Flower of the Sea, a name both beautiful and ominous. Built in Lisbon around 1502, the Flor de la Mar was one of the grandest ships of her time, tall-masted, richly decorated, and designed to carry the riches of the East back to Europe. But the ship was also notoriously unstable, heavy, difficult to steer, and prone to taking on water. A jewel of engineering, but flawed. By 1511, she had served for nearly a decade, ferrying spices, porcelain, and silks between India and Portugal. But that year, she was chosen for a far more glorious and dangerous mission, to carry home the spoils of Afonso de Albuquerque's conquest of Malacca, a strategic trade city on the Malay Peninsula and one of the crown jewels of Southeast Asia. The cargo was said to be the richest ever assembled by the Portuguese Empire: gold, gems, rare artifacts, ornate furniture, textiles, and tributes from the sultans of Southeast Asia. It included a personal gift from the Sultan of Malacca to King Manuel Thumrens, a tribute to imperial dominance and wealth beyond imagining. Some estimate the value of the treasure at over $3 billion in today's terms. But the Flor de la Mar would never deliver her fortune. On the return voyage, as the ship attempted to round the northern tip of Sumatra, she was caught in a sudden, violent storm. The sea surged, winds howled, and somewhere in that watery corridor between Sumatra and Malaysia, the massive carrack broke apart on a reef. She sank in the night. There were survivors, among them reportedly Albuquerque himself. But much of the crew perished, and more importantly, the treasure went down with the ship, disappearing into the deep, never to be seen again. Or so the legend goes. For centuries, the fate of the Flor de la Mar has been the stuff of obsession. Dozens of expeditions, both government-backed and privately funded, have sought her remains. Modern treasure hunters, equipped with sonar, magnetometers, and deep-diving submersibles, have combed the Strait of Malacca, hoping for a glint of gold or the shape of sunken wood, but nothing has ever been found. No confirmed piece of the hull, no gold coin, no jeweled goblet, not even a cannon. How can a ship of that size with a cargo so vast simply vanish? The Strait of Malacca is treacherous. It's shallow in parts, rocky, and plagued by strong currents. Silt moves constantly, covering and uncovering the seabed like shifting sands of time. Wrecks there don't rest in peace. They are torn apart, scattered, and consumed. Some say the Flor de la Mar was ground to nothing over centuries. Others suggest it lies buried beneath layers of sediment, invisible to sonar. And then, as always, come the theories. Some believe parts of the treasure were recovered in secret by survivors or locals and hidden away, passed down through generations, dispersed through trade or theft. Others whisper that modern governments have found the wreck and kept it secret, fearful of disputes over ownership. Portugal, Indonesia, Malaysia, and even private claimants have all laid theoretical claim to the treasure. But many believe the Flor de la Mar still lies undisturbed, cradled in coral, her golden heart untouched by time. And in that belief lies obsession. Treasure hunters like Robert Marks, one of the most famous marine archaeologists of the 20th century, spent years chasing the Flor de la Mar, calling it the richest vessel ever lost at sea. Despite spending millions and mapping large areas of the strait, even he found nothing conclusive. Others have gone bankrupt or disappeared entirely in pursuit of her legend. Yet the pull remains irresistible. Because this is not just a tale of gold, it's the tale of empire, ambition, and loss. The Fleur de la Mar was a floating monument to European expansion, carrying the extracted wealth of a conquered world. Its sinking was more than a tragedy, it was a metaphor. The sea, in one violent act, reclaiming what men tried to steal. And perhaps that's why it has never been found. Some say the ship is cursed, that any who seek it are doomed to fail, as penance for the greed that built it. Others believe it is simply fate, that some things are meant to remain lost. But if the Fleur de la Mar were to be found, intact, gleaming, untouched, it would rewrite the story of colonial exploration. It would resurrect questions about cultural ownership, historical accountability, and who truly holds claim to the spoils of a forgotten age. Until that day, she remains a whisper on the sea, a name spoken in divers bars and backroom briefings, a dream glittering just beyond reach. The flower of the sea sailed with the riches of a continent and became the most valuable ghost in maritime history. And beneath the restless waves, perhaps she still waits, silent, glittering, and undiscovered. East of Japan, in the vast stretch of Pacific Ocean between Tokyo and the Mariana Islands, lies a region of water so enigmatic, so steeped in unexplained phenomena, that sailors have feared it for centuries. Known locally as the Mano Umi, the Sea of the Devil, and internationally as the Devil's Sea, this area is often compared to the infamous Bermuda Triangle. Ships disappear, planes vanish, instruments fail, and sometimes what goes in never comes back out. It is one of the ocean's most enduring and chilling mysteries. This patch of ocean, roughly triangulated between Japan, Guam, and the northern Philippines, has long been shrouded in superstition. Japanese fishermen once believed dragons lived beneath the surface, capable of pulling entire vessels into the depths. Others told of ghost ships, phantom lights, and sudden storms that appeared from clear skies, obliterating everything in their path. But these weren't just old sailors' tales. In the 1940s and 1950s, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Japanese cargo ships, fishing trawlers, and military vessels began vanishing in the region, often without sending distress signals. Entire crews gone. Hulls never recovered. At one point, Japanese authorities were so alarmed by the string of disappearances that they launched a dedicated research expedition in 1952, sending the ship Kaiomaru No. 5 to investigate. It never returned. The loss of the Kaiomaru, along with its 31 scientists and crew, shocked the nation. No wreckage was found. No message was received. Japan officially labeled the area dangerous and restricted further missions for years. What had swallowed an entire research vessel armed with the best instruments of its time? Theories began to multiply. Some blamed volatile underwater volcanoes, which are plentiful in the area. Sudden eruptions or gas discharges could cause massive waves or shifts in pressure, potentially strong enough to capsize ships or send them into the abyss. Others pointed to magnetic anomalies, similar to those reported in the Bermuda Triangle, that could interfere with navigation, disable engines, or disrupt communication systems. Pilots reported compass errors, bizarre radar echoes, and even moments where their equipment seemed to reset, as if time itself had fractured. Then there were the whispers of something older, something deeper. Legends claim the Devil's Sea overlaps with one of the world's 12 vile vortices, regions identified by researcher Ivan Sanderson as zones of strange energy, where the laws of physics seem to behave erratically. Other such vortices include the Bermuda Triangle, the Algerian megaliths, and Easter Island. According to this theory, the Devil's Sea is a doorway, perhaps to another dimension, or a tier in space-time itself. Unprovable, perhaps, but it attempts to explain what logic cannot. In 1955, Charles Berlitz, author of The Bermuda Triangle, popularized the idea that the Devil's Sea was its eastern twin, a mysterious force that consumed vessels in silence. His writings, though often criticized by scientists, resonated with the public and rekindled global curiosity in a region long ignored. And the incidents haven't stopped. In 2007, a Taiwanese fishing boat vanished without a trace after sending its final location near the edge of the Devil's Sea. In 2010, a Chinese cargo ship briefly lost contact, and when found drifting, the crew was reportedly confused and disoriented, claiming they had been in clear weather, then surrounded by dense fog and electrical sparks in the sky. These cases, while rare, continue to feed the mythos. So what is happening in the Devil's Sea? Some scientists argue it's simply a mix of dangerous geography and coincidence. The region sits atop a volatile tectonic boundary, with active volcanoes, deep ocean trenches, and powerful undercurrents. Navigation is difficult, weather changes fast, accidents are likely. But skeptics fail to explain why so many ships vanish without a single signal in calm conditions, and why even military tracking systems sometimes miss entire vessels. The sea, after all, is not new. We've mapped much of it, monitored it. Um, but the Devil's Sea resists that understanding. It shrugs off explanations, it keeps its secrets in silence. To the Japanese, the area is sacred and feared. To modern researchers, it is a challenge that sits just beyond the reach of reason. And perhaps that's what makes it so haunting. Unlike other mysteries that become clearer with time, the Devil's Sea only grows darker. The deeper we dive, the less we see. The more we record, the more questions arise. It is not just an enigma of the sea, it is an enigma of perception, of how we deal with the unknowable. Could it be that the Devil's Sea is nothing more than nature in its most unpredictable form? Or is it something older, something ancient and aware? We may never know, because the Devil's Sea doesn't roar, it doesn't warn, it simply waits, and sometimes it takes. There are places in the ocean where light has never touched, realms of eternal night, where pressure would crush the hull of a submarine and temperatures hover just above freezing. In these depths, far beneath the reach of sunlight and human comfort, life persists, not in defiance of nature, but as its most alien expression. And sometimes, in the black silence of the abyss, something stirs. In recent decades, whispers have emerged from the far southern oceans. Among Japanese fishing fleets operating near Antarctica, rumors began to circulate of a colossal, pale creature, humanoid in shape, but in no way human. They called it the Ningen, or the human thing. According to eyewitness accounts, it measured between 20 to 30 meters in length, its skin a ghostly white, its body vaguely shaped like a person, head, limbs, even fingers, yet monstrously proportioned and silent as the ice. At first, these stories were dismissed as modern sailor folklore, tall tales born of boredom and shadow. But then came the photos, grainy, distant images published in Japanese cryptozoology magazines, shapes beneath the ice, curves of flesh too large, too symmetrical to be mistaken for whales or drifting icebergs. Video clips followed, brief, blurry, and inconclusive, but enough to spark obsession. What exactly is the Ningen? Is it a cryptid? A new species? Or something older, hidden beneath our feet since before recorded time? The scientific community remains skeptical, but the stories persist. Crews have reported seeing the creature surfacing slowly, only to vanish beneath the waves without sound. Some claim it follows boats, gliding silently under the hull. Others say it moves vertically, rising like a pillar of flesh from the depths before slipping back into the dark. But the Ningen is not alone in the mythology of the deep. The ocean's most profound depths have always harbored giants, not just in legend, but in fact. The phenomenon is called deep-sea gigantism, a biological trend in which creatures that dwell at extreme depths evolve to enormous sizes. It's not fiction, it's science. Take the colossal squid, only confirmed in recent decades, with specimens reaching lengths over 14 meters. Or the giant isopod, a nightmarish cousin of the common pillbug that roams the seafloor like an armored scavenger the size of a house cat. Giant amphipods, king crabs, the size of garbage can lids, and jellyfish with tentacles longer than buses, all drift through the abyss. Why? Theories vary. Some scientists suggest gigantism in the deep is a survival adaptation. Longer lifespans, slower metabolisms, and low predation allow creatures to grow to enormous sizes. Others believe cold temperatures, scarce food, and immense pressure drive unusual biological developments. But whatever the cause, the result is clear. Earth's last giants live not in the forests or the skies, but in the darkness below. And we've only begun to see them. Less than 10% of the deep ocean has been explored. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the Haddle Zone, depths greater than 6,000 meters. With every dive, every sonar ping, every remotely operated vehicle, ROV, that descends into that crushing blackness, we are reminded of our ignorance. What else waits down there? The idea of the Ningen, unsettling as it is, touches something primal. It blurs the line between marine biology and myth, between fear and fascination. Its humanoid form echoes our own, but warped, stretched, mutated by an environment we were never meant to inhabit. It is, in a way, a mirror held up to the abyss, a reminder that nature can imitate us in the most terrifying of ways. Skeptics argue that the Ningen is simply a misidentified whale, ice formation, or giant ray, and perhaps some sightings are. But the consistency of the reports, the shape, the size, the behavior, suggests something more. More than one report describes a gaping, lidless eye, reflective and massive, just beneath the waterline. Some even claim the creature makes a low frequency hum, barely audible but felt deep in the chest, like standing near a living engine. One Japanese vessel allegedly turned back from Antarctic waters in 2005 after a Ningen encounter left the crew psychologically distressed. The logs were never released. Of course, without hard evidence, the Ningen remains folklore. But so once did the giant squid. So did deep sea vents. So did bioluminescent fish. The ocean doesn't care what we believe. It only reveals what it must, when it must. And perhaps, just perhaps, we are not meant to see everything. Because in the deepest, coldest parts of our world, where pressure is measured in tons per square inch, and darkness is not the absence of light, but its permanent exile, something ancient lives. Something vast, something quiet. And sometimes it looks back. We began with a question: what lies beneath? Over the past 4 hours, we have descended into some of the darkest corners of our planet, uncovering ruins of forgotten cities, hearing the last echoes of lost ships, and brushing against the edges of mysteries so vast, so unfathomable, they defy the boundaries of logic. But in the end, we are still only visitors here, spectators standing at the shoreline of the unknown. For all our satellites and sonar, for all our submarines and science, the ocean remains a frontier, wild, ancient, untamed, a place where history sleeps beneath sediment, where machines vanish without a sound, where legends are born not from imagination but from the things we simply cannot explain. We have found ships adrift with no crew, cities perfectly preserved beneath waves, sounds that echo from places no human has ever reached, and creatures that stretch the limits of biology itself. And yet, for every mystery we explore, a dozen more rise from the deep, unanswered and unresolved. Because the ocean is not merely water, it is memory. It remembers every mistake, every ambition, every disappearance. It hides what we are not ready to find, and reveals only what it chooses, when it chooses, and that perhaps is its greatest power. So as you return to the surface, remember this: we think of space as the final frontier, but the sea was here long before us, and it will remain long after we're gone. It has taken empires, swallowed fleets, silenced voices, and yet, beneath the waves, it keeps everything, every secret, every truth, waiting. If this journey into the deep has stirred your curiosity, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. There are still stories to tell, and still oceans left to explore. Thank you for watching. Until next time, respect the depths and listen to the silence. It's never empty.